There we go. All right.
Okay. So the next year after that, a girl named Kayla Scott wrote a play titled #Wild Black. And that was all about, it was about two things: profiling the experience that she has had being profiled, and also gentrification, like her grandma's neighborhood being totally, like black people being displaced from this neighborhood. And that won everything that year. That won everything.
I went to that. It was fabulous.
And then we were supposed to go to the next level, which was in Kentucky, I think. And it was going to cost us $25,000. And that was it. I was like, nope, no, that is so wrong. Like, this is all so wrong, not doing it. And I think probably Kayla and some of the other kids were really disappointed that I didn't fundraise for this, but I thought, I can think of $25,000 going to I'd rather give Kayla a scholarship, which I actually did, than spend all this money going to Kentucky to be in a theater competition. And then the year after that, a girl named Maria wrote a play based on, she had a terrible experience with a drama teacher who came to an event in our school, and it was a playwriting event, and Maria's group had written something about Confederate imagery, and the teacher just lambasted her over it and said, like, you're insulting my ancestors, because my ancestors were Confederates. And Maria wound up crying. It was really a terrible day. Maria wound up crying, and I said to her, make Shabbos with this, which is a Jewish expression, meaning like make something good out of something bad. I said, make this a play. And so she made it a play, the whole thing, with the teacher interrupting, and it was a great play, and it I think that it went a long way in helping our schools understand why Confederate imagery had to be banned. And this year, and then we took a little bit of a hiatus because of the pandemic, and we did what we called 1-minute stories. And that was on Zoom, and each kid told their story. It was really good, but it's not the same. Zoom plays aren't the same. And then this year we have 2 original plays. One is just a flat-out comedy that kind of satirizes theater kids, and it also satirizes really bad therapists, and it's funny. But the other one is about backstories. The title is Unclaimed, and it's all about unclaimed, two young people working at a dry cleaners, and they see all of these unclaimed things that are going for sale, and some of them are very expensive, and some of them are very significant pieces, significant garments, and they're trying to figure out, why did somebody leave this and never claim it? And then on the other side of the stage, you see the backstories. One backstory is a deportation story that was written by one of my students who almost got deported. One is a transgender story. One is a story about a black girl who gives a speech at graduation and she gets in trouble for it because it's too controversial. One is a story about a dad who passes away. Each one was written by a different student. There were like 3 or 4 writers on this, and they used their own stories as the backstories. So so there's a lot of really good kernels in everything, and a lot of really interesting topics. Spousal abuse is one of the things that's tackled. So a lot of really good, interesting topics.
Yeah, that come from the kids. One of the things that I know is that your kids incorporate a lot of their own sort of talents and love of, whether it's dance or writing their own and performing their own music. Talk a little bit about that, because that really adds a whole different spin beyond just kids writing the plays or directing the plays. that you've got kids building sets and,
Yeah.
you know, choreographing.
Designing,
Yeah, talk
choreographing.
about just that, because it's kind of a holistic
Right.
approach to building the team based on what do kids feel like
Right.
they do well.
Well, most theater teachers hire a choreographer, and I've never hired a choreographer. I always use student choreographers. Until last year, I hired a student who had just graduated, and I wanted to pay her for her art because I really believe that people should be paid for their art. So this girl, Haven Fleming Bryant, who is now, she gives dance lessons around town, and she runs a competitive dance group called the Elite Empire. And so I have her, but I also had students always doing choreography. And at first it was because like I watched them dance and I thought they're such good dancers, they should be able to figure this out. And they loved it. And I think I've had better choreography than almost any show anywhere. And it was all done by students. And part of it is because I love dance. Like I spent the entire 80s clubbing a lot. I love to dance. I've always loved to dance. And I get really bored if there's not dance. I like to see dance on stage in a musical. And so that's been a really big thing. The trick is...
Even guys.
Yes. Well, the trick is that guys are sometimes afraid to dance because, you know, they're so worried about their masculinity. And there's like, I have 2 girls in my class right now who are Haven's dance students, and they're both very shy to dance. So it's going to take me a little while to get them to teach us some dance. I know I can get them, but it's going to take a little while because people are afraid of, like, there's no age that's more terrified of what other people think than teenagers. So that takes a little while, but once you get them, you have them. And like the other day, I noticed this boy in class, his name is Chance, and he always says, oh no, I don't dance. No, I don't dance. And then the other day there was music going on and no one was watching him. Everybody was in their little groups doing something else, and I'm watching him and he's dancing. And I was like, Chance, you're a good dancer. And he's like, no, I can't dance. So once he dances and other people are clapping and saying like, you're a really good dancer, he'll never be afraid to dance again. But that I have to get there.
Wow. So the other thing that I think is pretty critical is that the drama, it's not just the kids that are on stage, but it's the classes really represent kind of the diversity of the school. And as you said right up front, that oftentimes drama programs, you know, what you have when you go, and I've seen them year after year after year, are middle-class white kids and doing pretty bad acting in some cases. Some of them are good, some of them aren't, but that you've really figured out how to find talent. And I remember you telling me one time, sometimes it's just to find it in the halls, Pam.
Okay, so here's the thing. I do something that no drama teacher does that I know of in any high school. I do not sequence my classes. I did it first. When I first got there, that's the way it was done. My predecessor did it that way. And most people do like drama 1. Then if you do drama 1, you can go into drama 2, and then you can go into drama 3, and then you go into the elite. You have to audition for this elite class. Like, bullshit. I don't like boundaries. I don't like barriers. And the best thing about my classes is because there's no sequencing, that's how freshmen meet seniors. That's how kids who struggle in reading meet the AP kids. That's how kids who speak different languages meet each other, because they're not in the same classes together.
It's really multi-age.
Completely multi-age. And that's where you learn. And oh my gosh, my seniors are they're better teachers than I am, because they can model certain things for the 9th and 10th graders. Like, I'm too old to model that stuff. And they are like my assistant teachers, my seniors, my juniors. And sometimes they're the people that get those poor 9th graders who are struggling to find their place. Just being connected with these upperclassmen, that's everything to them. So for me, it's all about community. It's not about learning skills. And also, I'm going to say something very, how do I put this? Very controversial now, and probably every drama teacher will hate me for it, but I'm going to say it. Acting isn't really necessarily a learned skill, and I don't believe that you have to like take acting lessons to learn how to act. I think it's all about just unleashing your fears. And like, I was a really good actress from the time I was little. I was really good, and I have never to this day taken an acting class. I've never taken a theater class, ever. I tried in college one time, and it was so ridiculous, and it was so bad that I dropped it after like a week. So I don't think it's the same thing as like learning the violin. You know, learning the violin, you have to learn how to read music, you have to, or maybe not read music, but you have to practice. Acting is really different, and you don't have to do things in a sequential way.
It's interesting to me because the other thing that I think people should know is that you were in 2019 the Tony Educator Award winner in New York City, right up there with all of the best of people on Broadway, and there's Madeline, who never took a theater class. What do you think got you that award?
Oh, honestly, I don't think it had anything to do with my ability as a theater director. I think it's all about engaging kids in the passion and participation of making this work of theater, making this collaborative work, and inviting every single type of student in, and having them all work together, and not elevating anyone over anyone else.
What do you think your kids take from having spent time with you, Madeline, and going out into life? What are the things that you hope they take away, and that you really have a sense that they do take away?
Well, I've been invited to a lot of quinceañeras and weddings, so I think that some of them have, really good, long-lasting feelings about having been in our program, and I still keep in touch with so many of my students. I think that what they take away from it is confidence, is finding their voice, a sense of agency, a sense of being able to speak up for things they believe in, and to speak up for other people who can't speak up. Just sort of being the agents of change and the agents of questioning. That's what I'm hoping that they take away. I don't really encourage them to pursue, if they want to pursue a career in acting or in design or whatever, that's fine. And I think that the design kids have done really well. There are some lighting kids and some sound kids who have done amazingly well. I do think that acting itself can be a very daunting and it's kind of like a very self-centered life. I'm not sure it's I used to think I wanted to be an actor when I was younger. Oh, I want to be an actor, I want to be a singer. I'm so glad that I didn't pursue that, because then you have to worry about things that I don't have to worry about. How do you stay young looking? How do you stay in perfect shape? How do you, perfect your interview skills? And I love never having had to think about that. I just want them to go out in whatever field they are, or whether they go to college or not go to college, and just feel like they know themselves better, and they feel confident in their voice.
It's interesting because going back to your days as kind of the coach for History Day, what essentially were mini drama productions based in history, and having kids kind of find stories and tell stories that were a little different than the norm. That one of the things that I know that you've done is you've had some kids that other teachers would not have given the chance to, would not have seen as having any rationale for putting them on stage or in a group like
Right.
National History Day, and that are what some people might call really tough kids, tough to connect to,
Right.
tough to really see as kids that have the motivation to do anything on their own,
Right.
Resistant to school, marginalized.
Yeah.
Do you have a couple of kids that you feel like that, that really being able to work with you and with other kids made a difference in their lives that otherwise might not have happened for them?
Yeah, I don't think that they won't necessarily reflect on it now, but maybe they will later. I can think of,
And you don't have to name
yeah,
them.
no,
just-
for me, it's about kids that were ignored in elementary school that should have been, like, someone should have tapped into them and seen their genius really young. And one of them is Moasia, who wasn't just an incredible singer. That's what everybody thinks about Moasia, that she's an incredible singer. But Moasia was, the way she connected to children was amazing. She was a leader like no other leader when we would have little children over to do work with. And also, she was funny, her improv skills. She was really brilliant in so many ways. She could write music. And I was amazed that she was never in any like really advanced class. Like she got to high school without having taken certain accelerated classes that I would have put her in. So I feel sad because I feel like her potential was discovered a little bit late. And I feel like if her potential had been discovered in third grade, maybe things would have been a little different for her. The other person is Naiji Jones, who was placed in my ninth grade. He was in my ninth grade, like academic English class. And right away, like the first week, I knew that there was something really special about this kid. But he was pointed in the direction of sports. Everything was sports. He's very athletic. So everything was always sports. And nobody tapped into this kid's amazing potential. He's one of the brightest kids I've ever taught. And I'm saying this, both of these kids were black kids. And I think that things have changed in the county, and I'm glad they've changed. But it used to be in gifted programs. I hate the word gifted because it's such bullshit. I call it socioeconomically gifted programs. Kids would be pulled out, and they would always be like the kids of professors and lawyers and doctors, and they were pulled out to do special things. And I remember in middle school, they were the only kids that were allowed to go on these special trips that, only the gifted kids could go on. Like, how horrible is that? Like, that is not what we're supposed to be teaching kids. So that has died a lot, and I'm really glad that was important to have died. But the way we track kids is really messed up, and I think that 5th and 6th grade teachers and also middle school teachers have way too much power in tracking kids and recommending kids. Like, my daughter was not recommended to be in like accelerated math or something, and I had to specifically request it. And so she was, and like, she's getting a PhD in engineering. Okay, so like, what the heck? So yeah, tracking just sucks, and I've seen it with my own kids. How, like, when we lived in the western side of town, like, all the parents said, you have to get your kid into the gifted program, no matter how you do it. You have to go to a private psychologist who deems your child gifted. Like, it's so toxic. That stuff is so toxic. And so where do I find my best kids? Honestly, I find my best kids in the, whatever, like in the basketball program, sitting in the cafeteria, maybe in ISS, I don't know. Like, you have to find them where you find them, and get to know each one of them and get to know their families. Like, that means everything. Because once the families are on board, then you got that kid.
I've often wondered where that tall, skinny kid that you had in middle school history day.
Oh, you mean Art?
Yeah.
Art Conley?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, I'll tell you where I hope he
Yeah.
reads this book when it becomes a book. Art Conley is amazing. He's probably the most brilliant kid I've ever taught. An ear for language.
Not necessarily seen that way in school.
Yeah, he was definitely a rebel in some ways. Although people did use him, I will say people used him, and also Cherise Morris, people used them as poster children. Oh, here's a good student who's black. We're going to use them as a poster child and make believe that it was, our doing. And neither of them like to be used as a poster child, I will tell you that. Art is now a French teacher in New Jersey, and he does so much more than teach French. And he's involved in a church, very much involved in his church, but his way. Like, he is bringing his version of Christianity to his church. And I just saw him recently because we went to a wedding and we saw each other at a wedding, and I'm just so proud of him. I never thought that he would wind up in education because he had such a healthy, distaste for so much of it.
And he was a kid that didn't have all the resources.
Oh, not at all.
At
No,
all.
he didn't. He was one of the kids who lived in the subdivision that other parents left that school because that subdivision was districted into this sweet little school that we went to. And so, a bunch of parents literally moved so they wouldn't have their kids going to school with these subdivision kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty cool to hear.
Yeah.
And Cherise is amazing.
Cherise lives in Detroit, and she's a community organizer and
No
a
surprises
writer.
there.
Yeah, and a writer, a published writer, and she has a baby and a very nice partner, and she's a housing and urban farmer advocate in Detroit. So
Who grew up in rural.
who grew up in rural Esmond, chopping her own wood. Yeah.
Mhm. Wow. So you think about that. Oftentimes, school districts, schools, particularly high school, are so hierarchical, as
Yeah.
you said, so competitive,
Yeah.
so tracked, and so content focused
Mhm.
that that piece about those who can't teach college end up teaching high school,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can get their content jollies from Shakespeare,
Right.
etc. What do you think, if you could wave the magic wand and create the high school of your dreams for kids?
Right.
What kinds of things would you change about high school?
Okay, one very obvious one is stop making bilingual kids take language. They're already bilingual. They shouldn't have to take language. And then they take Spanish, and they're failing it because they didn't do their conjugations or whatever. But they're already bilingual, fully bilingual. So stop that. Stop the terrible course content. Like, redo the courses. They shouldn't be the same as what I was taking.
Should kids
in
be
high
involved
school.
in some of that?
To a certain extent, yes. To a certain extent, because, okay, first of all, understand that you don't even know what kids are doing. Like, parents don't know. Like, I know because they're so free in my class, they tell everything. If parents only knew what their kids were telling about them, they would die. If teachers only knew, like, they're cheating all the time. Why are they cheating? I cheated in high school. It was boring. It was dry. I cheated in high school. Did I grow up to be a thieving, cheating rat? No. Like, cheating is a normal process that you go through to get, like, we demonize it now like it's the worst thing in the world. Like, I had a kid copy a paper of mine in college. He got caught. He was given like a C, like he was given a 0 on the paper. He had to redo it, and then he wound up getting a C in the course. But he wasn't like excoriated or humiliated or kicked out of the school. It was the first time he did it, and they allowed him to redeem himself for a lower grade. So like this whole punishment and reward thing is so messed up. That's one thing. Punishment and reward, and giving people, like everybody giving people titles. Like no one cares about the National Honor Society. Stop those things. Stop the Honor Society. Stop the, I don't think colleges even give a damn about it, because honor societies are different. They have different standards in every school, so it doesn't really mean anything. Stop the giving people like, you're the president of the science club, you're the secretary of the thespian club. I hate the word thespian. Why do we even use that word? It's so stupid. You're the secretary of this club or that club. Like, I would do away with all that stuff. And that's one of the things. Like, stupid rules. I do kind of like it that kids aren't on their phones now. That is a new rule, and I do kind of like it because they're, at least in my class, we're fully listening to each other, because phones are really addictive. Like, I'm addicted. I would be doing my crossword puzzle in a class completely while a teacher is teaching. So I'm not against that, and I'm not against certain rules about like attendance and lateness and stuff like that. But I feel like if we really knew kids and what they were doing and what they were thinking, it would enable us to make school better for everyone. But there's never time enough. Like, even the counselors, they're so overloaded. They can't get to know their students. So how can they really help them or schedule them? And we do have some great counselors, but they only have limited time.
Absolutely.
And another thing that I would do is I would I would listen to what students say about teachers, because some teachers are just so punitive, and it's so unfair, because you'll see a kid, like two kids in the same exact class, and one keeps getting D's and one keeps getting A's, and they work pretty much the same. And so why is one getting D's and one getting A's? So you have to kind of investigate what's going on and like what's being used as a punishment. I think it's really bad when grades are being used as a punishment. And in my class, pretty much everybody, if you show up and you're participating every day, you're gonna get an A. Period.
Ungrade.
Yeah.
Wow. Kill it there.